So, growing up, I had this kind of distorted view of God. One that kind of painted this intolerant, impatient picture of this deity in the sky who just was waiting for me to mess up so he could kick me back in line or just get hell ready for me. I had this view of God that said, you can't have any doubts, you can't have any questions. This is the way it is, and it's either in or out. It's black and white, and it's very simple, right? And that was my view of God, and it wasn't a very pretty picture. But as I grew up, I began to have these doubts, and I began to have these questions, not just about faith, but really about a lot of things and decisions in life, and those doubts led me to seek new understanding and to figure out things that I didn't know before. And so I really began to see doubt as a good thing, as a healthy thing, as a very normal part of life. Maybe not something that we should be constantly living in, but this healthy sense of questioning and seeking truth and answers. It seemed like a really good and helpful thing to me. So I had this struggle because one part of me was saying, doubts are good and they've been helpful, but my current view of God says that God doesn't like them, and something's wrong there. There's a tension there, and I don't know what to do. And so one day I began to read the scriptures and read God as described by the life of Jesus. Read God as described by the ministry of Jesus. And I began to see a very different picture of God. I saw a God who was comfortable with questions. As a matter of fact, he encouraged them. A God who met questions with proof, or at least encouragement and not anger. There's this story in the book of John where one of Jesus's main guys doubts him. This guy's name is Thomas, and from this scene, he gets the nickname Doubting Thomas, just from this one thing. So here's what happened. Jesus dies, and 3 days later, he rises from the dead, just like he told these guys, his best friends, just like he told them he would. So Jesus comes back after he dies, and he appears to these guys, only Thomas wasn't there. And so he didn't see him. And so that's where we kind of pick up. And this is from John chapter 20. It starts in verse 24. It says, "One of the 12 disciples, Thomas, was not with the others when Jesus came. They told him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he replied, 'I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and place my hand into the wound in his side.' 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. 'Peace be with you,' he said. Then he said to Thomas, 'Put your finger here and look at my hands. Put your hand in the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe.' 'My Lord and my God,' Thomas exclaimed. Then Jesus told him, 'You believe because you have seen me. Blessed are those who believe without seeing me.'" When I read this story, I can't help but side with Thomas a little bit. Because I feel like I would have had probably the same reaction a little bit, right? Show me some proof. You say this guy who I know was dead is now alive. Show me some proof. And then a week goes by. It says 8 days go by, and he's still waiting. Can you imagine what that week was like? I mean, a week with your closest friends telling you they saw Jesus alive after he was killed, and you don't believe them because you didn't see it. It had to be a long week. And God didn't act immediately for Thomas. He had to wait. It would seem like a long time. And God, in my experience, doesn't always act immediately, but I do believe that he always does act. So a week later, he shows up and he proves to Thomas that he can be trusted. He proves to Thomas that he didn't have to doubt anymore because Jesus met him in his doubt. I think he does the same for us. I really believe Jesus welcomes our doubts. He welcomes your doubts. He welcomes our questions. He's not scared of the tough questions or the uncertainty. I don't know what your doubts are or your questions are, but I do hope that the story of Thomas's doubts will be an encouragement to you, an encouragement that in Jesus they can be handled. So I think Jesus says, bring them on. He's not scared of them. So the question that I have for you is, how do you deal with your doubt? Do you live in that doubt, or are you constantly seeking out answers? Are you using that doubt to fuel your passion to know what the truth is? Yeah, I hope you are. I hope you're able to find someone or a group of someones to whom you can express your doubts, and together figure out a way to use those doubts to seek out truth.